Welcome, everyone,
Okay.
to another episode of Saving the World Together with Luke McMichael and Martin Resney. Today we have another special guest, James Boyd Fuller, who's the author of Deep Calls the Deep, a new book that talks about a lot of different ideas on how to make the world better, particularly through energy, creating some new energy sources and energy techniques to clean up our environment and not use so much of the dirty fossil fuels we've been kind of addicted to for so many years. But also many other interesting ideas on spirituality and how to try to connect ourselves and make the world a little better and fight free from some of the tyranny and the conspiracies and all the other bad things that have been kind of holding back our progress. So thanks so much for joining us today, James. Would you like to just offer a quick intro of yourself to our guests or our viewers?
Certainly. I'm James Boyd Fuller and author of Out of Balance and Deep Calls to the Deep. I was born in Wisconsin and I grew up around nature on a lake in Chute Lake Mountain, Wisconsin. And my grandfather was always helping me to learn more and more about how important nature is. As you give to nature, nature gives back for you. And on that journey, I asked many, many questions, and I was always curious about how things worked. So I became a mechanical engineer and learned how we can work with nature symbiotically through science and learning and through relationships that produce good, better, like Green Sahara project, which I started like 6 years ago. Um, Dr. Steyer is heading that up now. Um, and it's basically an idea I had about how we could get water to the Sahara Desert, other than what was in the aquifers there already. So you know that Sahara Desert gets little rainfall, and now there's a bigger problem where the mountains are drying up. You know, the Atlas Mountains, which Dr. Starr wanted to use, and now we needed another way to get water to the Sahara Desert. Well, that was my big plan. Excuse me. How to get that water to the Northwest Africa aquifers,
Did
which
it
are,
involve did it involve taking like ocean water and desalinating it at all, or anything like that,
oh
or
no, 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 no,
that?
much more profound than that, but much more simple
Okay.
than that also.
Are you pulling it from the air in some way, or where would you get it
No,
from?
comes from Greenland.
Ah,
Okay, you get trillions of tons of meltwater every year off of Greenland.
hmm.
You can recoup some of that. 1% would fill the aquifers in the Sahara Desert.
Wow.
2% would overflow them, bringing the water to the surface.
So how would you get it from
So
Greenland to the Sahara?
through a pipeline.
So you want a massive water pipeline from Greenland to the Sahara to collect all the melted water from as the icebergs melt in Greenland. That's really interesting.
Yes, and you'd use simple cofferdams, which are segregated. You know how a cofferdam works. It flows into one container, flows over, and enters into another container.
Hmm.
That's your filtered water. That would be gravity fed to the Sahara Desert aquifers,
Wow.
which are all conjoined. You only need one pipeline.
That's a really interesting idea. I've never heard of that before. That's really cool.
That was in my first
What's the
book out
price?
about
What's the cost estimate for something like that to build a pipeline from Greenland to Africa?
about $32 billion
Well,
in
that's
today's
pretty
terms.
reasonable, actually.
Very,
It's, yeah,
very small amount
yeah.
compared to what we're wasting.
That's
I
really
mean, we're
Yeah, compared
35
interesting.
to
billion
military
in debt.
budgets and stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll have to look more into that. Well, that's some really interesting ideas, James. I also wanted to kind of touch on your energy machine of some kind. So you mentioned in on your book that it was the size of a football field and could generate about a gigawatt of energy through some kind of hydro. Can you explain a little bit in layman's terms how it works? Is it like a hydro plant or pulling energy from the water somehow?
Certainly. It works with water. And my great grandfather or my great uncle, Buckminster Fuller, came up with a geodesic dome, right?
That's a name drop right there,
And
James. That's a pretty big name. So if you're connected to Buckminster Fuller, that's a claim to fame right there. I had no idea. Cool.
well, I don't want to be famous. I just want to do good
Absolutely.
and better.
That's great.
So I learned from his principles, and I kind of continue, that march toward being a better species. And that was his main theme, was to be a better species working together, creating and enjoying what we create, and being symbiotic with our creation and the relationship to that creation working with it. So the water power plant was invented by John Rosebush, which has a remarkable capability. And me being an engineer, it sparked my interest, saying there's no way you can do this. Okay. I came into it absolutely in a negative sense, which I never do that much. But when he came out and said that he could do this, I said, I need to know a little more about it. So me, John, and Richard Carnicki would weekly meet, and we would talk about, what we can do for humanity. And John said the future cannot be run by intermittent energy. It has to be by a complete symbiosis of using the kinetic energy of water. And how do you do that? You put it in a circular pattern, goes around in a circle, and you use the kinetic force energy of the water itself. So you, instead of he beat the ebb the concept of the ebb is something that negates the energy of the water. So he took this energy point of kinetic force and concentrated it into the entire flow of the water. And how he's done that, well, that's the secret to the whole device. So yes, in the size of a football field, we can create 1 gigawatt of energy. We probably could get, 2, 4, 6 gigawatts of energy in the size of a football field. Okay? And it's all on the premise of kinetic force transfer. And once you understand the diligence of water, how you can, make it more condensed at a single point. Well, it's dependent on how this wheel is built. All right. It's turning a wheel, absolutely turning a wheel. We're creating 7.2 million foot-pounds of energy directed at this wheel. 7.2 million foot-pounds coming out on the shaft. All right. So what is 7.2 million foot-pounds? That's 1 gigawatt of energy. And you can do it on, you have a circle, you have a 180-degree circle, which allows you to put more into that stream of energy. So once you've got the water flowing like a river, think about
It's like a whirlpool. It's like you're generating a whirlpool of some kind.
Yes, like a water park. Okay, you're moving water from one place to the other, and you're allowing yourself to become slippery and slide down a slide. Well, we're becoming slippery and pushing energy into a wheel, and it's basically very simple once you understand the configuration of the wheel. And that's the secret of the whole point, is to concentrate the energy into segments into a wheel. Now the wheel's semi-floating, so it's not going to be bearing down on the water or becoming warped. It's going to be a rigid structure, except some points of the wheel are not rigid. So it's able to take the water and move it across itself in 3 different points. We have the lower point, we have the 33-degree point, and then we have the flow of the water itself that's helping this create more energy. But that's not where it ends, okay? You got to say, how are we going to run these pumps that are creating the power for the kinetic force energy points?
Right.
We have a separate wheel that will devote itself to only running the pumps. And then there's a third wheel that only runs the gigawatt generators or the 500 megawatt generators. So, then there's a fourth wheel that, it's segmented across its entire system.
So, let me interject for a second. This is very fascinating. So, as far as just Newton's laws of energy, the law of conservation of energy, is it breaking that law, or is it just kind of pulling the energy from the gravity or from the atmosphere or from some kind of nuclear force? Where's the energy actually coming from?
Okay, you have to take an outside power source to get it started.
Right. But once
you don't just turn a key on and it starts up.
I get that. Well, once it's started and moving, in order to keep it moving, it has to either, I guess, pull from gravity, pull from the moon, maybe. The gravitational force of the moon, I guess it could pull from. I'm just trying to understand where the energy to keep it going is coming from to have a net export of energy from the system.
Right. That's where your separate wheel, your separate segmented wheel, segmented in a specific way where it's got a lot of energy. I mean, I'm telling you, when I understood this thing, that lot of energy into that wheel using water, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it was possible until you actually witnessed and seen the moment of the kinetic force. Now, where's the kinetic force coming from? It comes from water pumps, okay? But the power source, remember, my great uncle, Buckminster Fuller, created a geodesic dome, right? Well, that was my idea to incorporate into John's work, to put a housing onto it. You have an inner dome, which is your dry electronics area. It's where everything happens. Then you have an outer dome, which has your moat, and water evaporation will condense on the walls. It'll go back in. You won't have to use as much water. And it will stay there for years. You won't have to add water. So you could put this device anywhere on the planet. But also on the dome, I would incorporate solar panels,
right?
Which is your startup, your startup energy, okay? And then you have batteries, of course, and that goes underneath the dome. The dome is 24 feet up off of the ground. You have a waterproof undercarriage, and you have elevator goes down there, but your batteries are down there also, which are being charged from your geodesic outer dome. And that gives you the startup power for your pumps.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I've just to maybe clarify Luke's question a bit, because of course, according to conventional physical models, one would expect that if you're using pumps to get the water moving, and then you're extracting energy from the water movement, that it must be a net loss. The question is why isn't it in this case a net loss of energy between what you put in to make the water move and what you extract from the water movement?
Right.
Well, that's the secret that John did not want to reveal.
Yeah, and that's fine. If it's
of course, just what we at least would like to know is that that there is something because obviously there has to be some trick or something to it that is not entirely obvious, or we'd be doing this already. Although I have to say, I have actually researched recently a lot of free energy technologies that very recently have been seem to be very promising. I would just point out that it's interesting how it's always like the trick somehow always is supposed to be in vortexes and geometry for some reason. Like
So
most of the people
basically, I can tell you this: John overcame the ebb factor, which using the entire flow across the entire size of your wheel. Your wheel determines how much energy you want to produce, and that wheel configuration, its segmentation, is the secret to his ability to overcome the ebb problem.
So it could have something to do with the strong or weak nuclear forces of the water molecules themselves, where they're kind of either breaking apart or there's some kind of low energy nuclear reaction happening in the water that kind of keeps it moving. Maybe something like that could be possible.
Well, because we have actually talked with Luke some time ago about these kinds of things. Are you familiar at all with the work of Malcolm Bendall, I think is his name? Or the channel Alchemical Science? Bendall.
No. No. Mendel?
So it's just like Bendall. Is the last
Mendel?
name. Bendall.
Bendall with a B.
Oh,
Bendall.
No, I don't know of him.
No, there's a lot of interesting ideas out there with stuff like this, as far as pulling energy from, any kind of matter in some way.
But just like something changing the molecular cohesion of things, being involved in this sort of energy devices.
Well,
just spitballing.
We'd love to see the prototype. How much is it going to cost to get this prototype working, James? Do you have it?
Well, I'm actually building it now. I'm about halfway done right now. I've ordered all the parts and things like that in a micro size. You should see these little the little gears, like a 300-to-1 gear. I have those in series, and I've got the little generators.
Yeah. If you can,
it'll be interesting to do it in a micro size. I'm doing it in a 30 by 30.
Let me tell you, James, if you can find any kind of prototype that has a net export of energy based on what you're putting in, if you're getting more energy out than you're putting in, I would fly down there to see it myself and spend my entire personal fortune, small may it be, to try to publicize it, in any way that I could to help you, for sure. And that's something I've definitely been very much near to my heart. What's that?
I'm incorporating what I've learned from Nikola Tesla also.
Yeah.
You can get copious amounts of voltage out of the air. I don't know if you knew that.
Absolutely. I've been following this kind of thing for a long time.
I have a circuit.
Yeah.
I have a circuit design that pulls, out of an antenna, pulls about 2,000 volts. Okay. The only problem with that system is disconnecting it for lightning storms, things like that, because you will override even sunspots. If they come in the wrong direction, and they come down south to the 30th parallel, wherever on the Earth, you get that back energy, which collides with your energy. It's not a pretty thing because it starts fires, but I've tested several designs, which me personally, I've never any of this I've never divulged. But yeah, the antenna design and the interesting point that I got out of Nikola Tesla's ideas was his Colorado Springs notes, where he was taking that energy from, how he was getting it out of an antenna. Okay, his antenna was 200 feet in the air, and he had a ball, 30-inch diameter ball. Okay, and it was covered with tinfoil, and he had a metal pole attached to it up until it hit the ground. He had 8 foot out of the ground wood, circular wood, where he jammed it into the metal. But how did he pull that energy out of the atmosphere. He had a spark gap. All right. That spark gap had an oscillation to it, and a natural oscillation. And he learned that the quicker the oscillation, he could bring the energy in more quickly. So he built a 52-foot around coil, and he took the spark gap and he put it to ground, and he put it to a coil on the system itself, the metal part, okay, above the 8-foot off of the ground, okay. So he designed different coils which would act differently with the resonance of the earth. So this spark gap, the closer you got it, the more quickly it went to ground. The further away you had it, the less quickly. So he basically had a transistor built into the system which collected the energy through the coil. The less quicker he could charge, he wanted to charge his coils. So the spark gap, putting less pressure on the spark gap, he could put more pressure into the coil. And depending on how many winds he had on that coil would depend how much energy you wanted to create. So he was upwards into 1,000,000 volts. All right. This isn't amperage or anything like that. There was amperage in it, yes, but it was all voltage that he was dealing with in his coils. Okay. And he could jump to a coil. And his interesting understanding was how I created this other device that I've actually written about it and called it the horse and buggy days. And I did a white paper on it, which showed the technique in today's terms, how we can do it, overcoming what you were calling the ability to create a more linear balanced system. Yeah. Okay, with energy going through it. So the only other person that I know of done this was Bedini, and I kind of stumbled onto his work. It came out, that's where he got his idea from. I conversed with him and I said, "Where did you get your idea from?" And he said, "Tesla." And I said, "Well, that's where I got my idea from." I was reading his book. Did you read his book? You know, Tesla didn't write the book, but it was his notes. The Serbians wrote the book, and it was his notes that I got. I said, "Why does he have a circuit like this? Why does he?" You know, me and my inquisitive mind would like, why is this circuit built like this? You know, with that ground in the spark gap to the ground. So after reading through his book, I understood what that circuit was for. And it's a charging circuit. It's basically a simple charging circuit. You can take a little bit of that energy off to make a large amount of energy in the end. Right. And so this is what we've incorporated in John's work also for his ability to create this energy in a circular fashion.
Well, that's super exciting, James. As far as the technical details, I think are a little bit beyond me, perhaps, and maybe most of our viewers. But I think it's super exciting that this is even in the works. Always, the proof is in the pudding. Trying to get something like this, over the production complications, as well as conspiratorial efforts to stop you with the powers that be, whatever you might want to call them, are definitely trying to constantly hold back any kind of power, as they probably did with Tesla to some extent. Who knows how much of his work was held back by the powers that be at the time because it was too much.
Yeah, or what was in all of the documents that they've confiscated after his death, right? Like what's so dangerous in that, like 100 years later, that we still don't know what was there.
Yeah. So it's
Well,
definitely my hope and prayer that more of these things become kind of more commonly known, and that we can actually prove, or get actual functional prototypes to the point where they can't deny it anymore, to the point where we can't have the powers that be hold it back, and we get some kind of citizens revolution, where we generate our own energy and we prove it to all the people in the world that it's possible.
My little invention, the horse and buggy days, it's called a DTM1, and I gave it to everybody. Anybody who wants to build one, they can build one. It has 4 coils, which the reason I use 4 coils, it's like a little engine, okay? And you step up. For each coil you have, you're stepping up more energy, more energy, more energy. And it uses a transistor, which on the collector side collects the energy, and I quarter rectify it on the way out. Now, the quarter rectification is for a purpose of creating a frequency capable of charging a battery. Instead of putting amperage into a battery, I'm using a frequency. And the frequency developed with these 4 coils is equal to what a battery will accept. So I've done it with a wet cell battery. I haven't done it with a lithium ion battery yet, but I'm looking, to do that. And once that's completed, all of this data collected, that's completed, that I'm doing, I will, give it to the world. I'm not out for money. Okay. I'm out for bettering the species.
Yeah,
and
cool.
we can have, if I've got an idea given to me free, why shouldn't I share it freely? No. So, but okay, I have to have considerations with John's work, because that's his work. It's not my work, but I've contributed to his work. And now that he's in the state that he is, I have got, a burden on me on what I'm going to do with this IP information. So,
yeah. So James, what can we do to help you? Are you looking for more people to kind of research with you? Or are you looking for funding? What exactly can our viewers do to kind of help this work move along and get out into the masses?
Up until this time, I've put all my resources and money into what I've developed and what I've created. Money is always good as used as a tool. But when you start getting into greedy and all of that, that's what I stir away from.
Right.
So, yeah, if my viewers would like to help in the development of the next phase, like lithium-ion charging systems that do not use solar power and intermittent energy, that's my goal, because that frees us from, you got to have light or you have to have wind. That frees us from that. That means.
So just to clarify, so the device you're talking about now, that would be like in the sort of style of Tesla's inventions, taking electricity from the air, which is presumably charged there through some sort of geomagnetic process.
Ether, yeah.
What we call the ether.
Yeah.
Or actually from ether. Okay.
Yes, and it's on the board, the circuit board, you have a variable resistor in which you can devote more energy to the frequency circuit or less energy to the frequency circuit, where you can dial it into where these batteries are, their frequency relies. Okay. And then there's a chemical action within these batteries that can take place. So, like, for instance, the wet cell. The wet cell, when I've reached the frequency of the wet cell, the desulfation takes place. And I've actually cut these batteries open and looked at them. What's curious is the frequency completely uses the entire cell. We're given a battery off the shelf it's a amperage charge that pushes heat into the cell, warping them. This is a charge that goes through frequency onto each cell, desulfating it, enhancing it, conditioning the battery. So you're using the entire cell. I've taken the thing open and I looked at the cells and I'm like, my goodness, this is a miracle. Okay? This is the miracle.
Wait. So when you say desulfating, what do you mean exactly by desulfating?
The wet cell to desulfate, when you use a battery, you're sulfating it over time, and it doesn't allow electrons to flow across the cell. So to desulfate it, what I'm doing is sending a sonic frequency into the battery. You can actually take a neon bulb and put the bulb around the battery and it'll light up. This is the frequency that Tesla had created in his work. So what is happening here? It's creating a vibration that's super fast that the battery desulfates by. It chemically teaches the battery, basically, that you don't want the sulfation on you. It takes off the chemical impediment, and it creates a clear cell where the electrons can pass across the cell easily. So you have to have the system shut off doing it. What I'm saying is the battery cannot be in use when you're doing it. So I have two banks of batteries, which the first bank is in operation. It's being sulfated. The second bank is being charged and desulfated. So there's a switch in between that. When you get to a certain amount of amps, it switches over and begins the desulfation of the one that was in circuit. And now it's out of circuit. The other one, the batteries are in circuit. Well, I've been able to do it with a parallel set of batteries, up to 14 batteries, which gives you more time in that system. So you can run your house on it, basically 24 hours or 4 days at maximum for 14 wet cell batteries. It takes 8 hours to recharge them. 8 hours to recharge. Now, this is what I'm giving to the world, and I've not gotten any, fanfare for it. Wow. For all that I've told everybody how to do it, nobody really cares. This is our world today because they don't believe it. They haven't tried it themselves. So you know what? We just keep going forward, and I'm going to do it with lithium-ion batteries. I even tried to get in touch with Elon Musk, and he's like, interesting. Okay, interesting. But he says that because he has a proclamation to do his work industrially through solar. Okay, that's his big thing. Okay, let's put solar on everything. That's not bad for a house, but when you go to try to do it in an industrial sense, you have intermittent energy. You have to have a source to back that up.
Right.
Coal.
Like more of like a base load continuous energy.
Correct. Yeah. So you have to have something that's going to back that up. So this is a whole house system that I built. The horse and buggy days, the DTM1, but it's for wet cell. Okay. Wet cell is kind of old-fashioned. I want to get to the lithium-ion stage where it will do the same for the lithium-ion. So James, I know it's possible, okay, because it is a battery. But what is the frequency? See, I have to get the right transistor. I have to get the right, base emitter, frequency, which is correct for that battery set.
Right.
And the 870, lithium ion 870 is a very popular battery, and I've been working on that, and it's been years I've been working on that. So James, I give you the causing experiments. I give you all of that's involved in this this white paper that I give to the world, and it's in my Dropbox, and I can link that, here.
That'd be great.
And yeah,
James, I'm curious, is it just you doing all of this stuff, or do you have a team of people, engineers working with you at all, or any other people
Just
that
me.
are kind of, it's a one-man show entirely
so far.
so far. So
I'm looking for the right people like you guys,
Well, yeah, no, I definitely reach out to our viewers. I'm not that technically inclined that I even understand kind of half of what we're talking about here, but it's good. Like I have kind of a math and physics mind, but as far as the technical engineering of electrical.
Yeah, James, maybe one question then. Do you have any sort of like a demonstration on video of the system working, or have you ever considered producing that and publishing it online?
I do have some video. I had a computer blowout, and everything was on it. So
Can you power your own house with this, James? If you have, say, two of them going, could you keep your house off grid entirely with these two systems? Have one charging and the other one going. Like that's something I would definitely be very interested to fly down and document, perhaps at some point, and just kind of prove it to the world in some way that this is working, because I think that would be a very unbelievable thing for most people, that your house would be off grid with just this kind of a system, no solar, no wind power. That would be very, very amazing to me if we could kind of prove that somehow or document.
When John came into my life, I was like ecstatic. I mean, for science, he's such a brilliant guy, and it's really a shame what's happened to him. I cannot believe it still today, the state of mind that he's reverted back to. It's like he just stares out, and he can talk to you, but he remembers nothing.
Yeah,
he remembers nothing. He has a prototype in his garage, so.
And James, that happened to John suddenly, or how did that happen?
Over time or suddenly? Suddenly.
We were going to the United Nations with the United Nations Challenge, and we were talking to Gutierrez, and he indicated he would put a letter out that this water power exists and we will build it through the United Nations, which would back us and would allow the IP, the internet, the intellectual property, to be maintained by John and rented out basically to all these nations to help them get off of oil and gas. So when you go against something that big, something's going to happen. Something's going to, that mind. It happens. Same thing. Stanley Myers, with his water hydrolyzers. I've reproduced his work, and yeah, that stuff works. It absolutely works. You can put more gas. It takes less energy to create. What you're doing is splitting the atom on a system that draws the atom up into a pipe. Okay? Brilliant work there by the Stanley Myers. His brother, I don't know, is still alive somewhere, but he's not doing Stanley's work anymore. I mean, that just like, okay, you're running cars on water. All right? I don't know if you heard of him, but
yeah,
he was poisoned. He got up from the table, he went out, and he collapsed in a parking lot. They said it was a heart attack. No. I knew Stanley, and he was very fit, and he was very, intuitive. He was intuitive, the powers that be, saying that he ran this dune buggy from California to New York on 32 gallons of water. He was fixing to make a spark plug that was capable of the same thing. And you can check it out, on his, I think his website may still be up, but he does have patents. And his patents cannot be taken lightly.
Hmm.
What he was doing was he could create mass using LED technology, DC voltage, will work. Spark plug. So you have water going to a spark, hydrogen and oxygen. What's your discharge is water on your discharge of your vehicle. Now, the only thing you'd have to do is make certain parts stainless. How would you design the engine that would be able to run water? Okay, more stainless. So where he was creating a rocket he could put into the upper atmosphere just by filling it with water. I'm like, Jesus, this guy is unbelievable, in his thing. So they had to get rid of him. And I believe, he was definitely I'm not going to say he was poisoned, but his brother indicated it was a poisoning. But
I think the official story goes that he said that after eating something, he said that he believed he was poisoned and then he died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's his name again? Stanley. What's the last name?
I haven't put out Stanley Myers.
Stanley Myers, yes.
Meyer.
Yeah, definitely heard of him before. It's definitely one of the big conspiracies out there, as far as.
So I've not published a lot of my work because you go to Science Journal and all of that, and I went to San Francisco, for instance, to a environmental meeting. Dr. Steyer was supposed to come and meet me there from Morocco to San Francisco and all of that. He never showed up. So I was there to declare this Green Sahara project. I talked with some of the Dr. Holtz. He was very interested in it. But the rest, they were like, they'll never do that. They laughed at me. Okay? Yeah. So what is it today? All of the green forest, the rainforest, the lungs of our planet being depleted terribly. We're creating savannas. I know a man down there, I can't remember his name now, but he's in Brazil, and he says he can barely navigate in the summer. The Amazon River is drying up. They're using all of this rain and irrigating the savanna now because all of the rainforest they've decimated is no longer there. There's nothing to keep it's starting to rain where it condenses at, over the ocean. Well, you don't want it raining over the ocean. You want it to condense over a rainforest to, that's your symbiotic relationship. Well, they've destroyed that. So this is where it comes back to the spiritual thing. You destroy the earth, you destroy your ability to go forward. I think they're trying to do that. Yeah. Who's trying to do that? CIA definitely is wanting to control the weather. HARP and all of that. I've done some reading on it. I understand frequencies very well. I've studied them all my life. So do I have a PhD in it? No, but I could go toe-to-toe with anybody when it comes to what a frequency is and how they react and how they can be produced correctly to do work. So what we're faced with today is the annihilation segment of people that it's a cult, okay? They go against what God created. It's a cult, and they teach you cult things, which is against God's understanding for us. All right? God's understanding for us was the law, but he superseded the law in Jesus. And that law is now given to us in grace and mercy. So if we accept Jesus as the Son of God, we accept grace and mercy, we can find really the workings of what God intended. And, I've sought that, Lord, teach me, you know my heart, and I will show others. They'll probably kill me over the long run, but, that's not my wish. But at least I'll have inherited something that is true. Okay, there's not a lot of truth in science anymore. They've got precipitous data saying that the Earth's crust and all of that is heating, and the CO2 is doing it. I disagree with that. What I disagree with is, contrary to what the science says. And we're not heating because of the CO2, because science goes back 4 or 5 million years into ice cores, and the CO2 was like basically huge amount of CO2, and they still had copious amounts of ice. But we were at the Pangea point, okay? It was one landmass. So the breaking up of the land masses, tectonics and all of that, that's what's happening to us, okay? It's shifting it's shifting the balance of the magnetic field. So when you shift the magnetic field, you have heat also. And it's a concept that I've been working on, and all the data points to that. All of the turbulence in the Earth is becoming, unstable. And it's coming from inside the Earth, not outside the Earth. So we're getting more and more earthquakes. We're getting more and more volcanoes.
So what's the solution to that then, James? What would be the solution to kind of solve some of those natural crises if that was the cause? Do we need to try to go into the Earth somehow and fix it? Or do we just deal with it? I
don't know. I have no answer for that.
Okay. I do know that I've been involved with several. Have you ever heard of the Creative Society? That's another one that has been kind of really pushing this climate change as a conspiracy, and that it's really just all about cosmic cycles. And like you're mentioning, something to do with the cycles of
geomagnetics,
the Earth.
Basically.
Yeah, and they're basically just saying we should redirect all our energy away from CO2 and climate change issues towards just trying to adopt some of these new free energy technologies, some of the replicator technologies, some of the free energy to cure your body and maybe even cure aging, things like this that they're kind of working on.
Well, what I would just say to that is that I've spent a lot of time actually studying particularly the skeptical movement and various issues with the academia in the last years. I've published a book actually about astrology, particularly about the conflict between astrologers and scientific skeptics. And very recently, actually, I have seen some of these elaborations on these geomagnetic cosmic cycles actually being the cause of these issues theories. And that actually would factor into astrology in particular, because it's all about the study of the cosmic cycles since the ancient times. And I would maybe just say that, actually, before I would believe that definitely isn't the case, and that CO2 is 100% the case. But I would also add that I wouldn't be surprised if actually these two things weren't mutually exclusive. If it was actually like both of these theories having some merit and being part of the issue at this point. So I would just like to clarify for the viewers, because I can understand how some particular groups of people have very different, very extreme opinions on this is one of the topics.
Yeah.
And there's this whole conspiracy theory and anti-conspiracy theory crowds, and algorithm on the internet and YouTube. Google algorithm is going to hate this 100% just because of the words that we said. And so it's just to have a message for the viewers. It's just we really are trying to entertain ideas. We don't necessarily say that everything that anybody says in these videos is 100% scientific fact, but we're very much for the open discussion of ideas. And we are now trying to ask clarifying questions. We are trying to be as critical as we can be, but also be absolutely respectful. So I would just like to say our official position isn't that because of what was said in the video so far, that it's definitely one way or definitely the other way. I would just like to point out I wouldn't be surprised personally that academia would be kind of right in some ways because there are some smart people who are trying honestly to do work in large part. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they had a massive blind spot because they decided that some particular historical area of study is like off limits and therefore nobody actually paid it enough attention. Yeah. So that's just like a little disclaimer that I would make.
That's a good one, Martin. Thank you for doing that. So James, back to the initial thing. So I think what it all comes down to, no matter who's, I guess, telling the truth or lying as far as science and as far as the truth of the world, it's definitely complicated. And we're definitely a big part of our goal is to try to shed light on that wherever we can, even though it's extremely hard to do in today's world. But I think more what we want to focus on are the connections that we can make together to try to learn from each other, to try to study from each other and provide proof wherever we can, I guess. So I would love to connect you with some other people perhaps that are working on similar things. I'd love to, maybe share your work or somehow get more people that are smarter than me involved somehow in your work so that we could kind of maybe implement it. I'd love to power my own house with this thing someday if someone can kind of show me how or walk me through the basics of it. I could create a documentary of some kind to kind of prove that it works. And spread it one person at a time. I have probably 100 friends that would also love to do a very similar thing if it actually works for me. I've got solar panels on my roof right now. I've had thousands of people over the years ask me, are those good? Do they work? Can I get solar panels too? I'm sure I would get just as many if I were to do something like this with my house. And little by little, those things can spread.
I've said earlier, solar panels on a roof is a small scale.
Yes. And
workable. Okay. But you get into the industrial size, it's not sustainable. You know as well as I do that the sun goes down, the clouds come over.
Yeah, you definitely need a mix of different energy sources, and all these kinds of technologies are a great part of the solution. I'm also a fan of things like even fusion technology at some point, cold fusion or even just hot fusion. If we can perfect it and get it working right, maybe it's a big part of the solution too. But I'm very much interested in anything like you're working on, James, as far as getting the prototypes working, proving them, particularly anything that's revolutionary and that we can kind of get out into the world one person at a time. So I'd love to stay in touch. I'd love to maybe fly down and meet you someday if you're interested in something like that. See a prototype in action if you have some kind of demonstration that I can kind of go through and document by video and kind of share it with our viewers as well. Are you interested in something like that at some point in the future, or is that kind of not interested in that right now?
If I could get the micro one working, definitely,
okay.
For humanity, absolutely. I've already, the DTM1, that's ready for deployment. I mean, I'll give you all that in email, the link and everything to the Dropbox for the white paper for that.
I have an engineering friend that will definitely understand it better than me, and I'll go to him and ask him to kind of go over it and see what he thinks, and see if he's something he can implement. Because he's worked on stuff like this a little bit. As far as off-grid powering, he's done a lot of off-grid power stuff with his company. So I'll pull in all my resources from all the different friends and family I have to try to make sense of it and see if there's something that we can realistically do here for my house, just to prove it. So that's great, James. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you.
That's not all I'm doing.
No, for sure, absolutely not.
I'm also doing for soils. I'm working with Dr. Ali Kavadi and planetaryhealthproject.org. This project, we're kind of being held up because the CLECO, that's Central Louisiana Energy. It's a coal burning power plant system which creates coal ash. Well, I found Dr. Ali Kavadi does soil coal ash mitigation. So I'm like, wow, this is great. We can take coal ash and 100% fix it and make organic fertilizer from it. Right now, we have what's called hypoxic zones around the world. All right, they're getting bigger. They're not getting smaller because we're having to use more artificial fertilizers. That's chemical fertilizers to grow crops. Okay, Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Sea is completely dead. All right, I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
So there's no life there. Why? Because they use so much artificial fertilizer on their crops, and they're like third in the world for wheat, I think, and all kinds of products that they're growing in the desert. They have desalinators. I mean, it costs them millions of dollars to run these desalinators, and to keep their crops, with water. So they're expending huge amounts of energy called money energy to create crops. All right. Well, this is happening all around the world. South Africa, Dr. Henry, I'm in touch with him. He says we need to do something quickly because our artificial fertilizer are killing our soils. So I'm in touch with Dr. Ali Kavadi in Canada, who has a system of making coal ash 100% detoxed. It's detoxed to the point where you can use the carbon out of it and create an organic fertilizer with microbial already in it from a field that farmer may need to replenish the microbial in his soil. So what is unique about his work, Dr. Ali Kavadi's work, is that he's 100% detoxing it. 2, he's offering it to farmers. 3, it's adding life into the soil through a waste product. So we got 3 major factors that he's solving in a waste stream. Now, here comes the dilemma. We have power plant people don't even want to talk to me. We have the EPA saying 34% of toxicity is okay in secondary products. Third, they're not even addressing, they're putting it into cement and they're putting it into gypsum board, which that translates into homes and businesses. These homes and businesses have up to 34% toxicity in their homes and businesses. Don't even know it because the EPA says it's okay. Now, I'm in contact with Michael Regan, who is the director of the EPA. He had some guy write back to me saying, we do not create the laws. I said, I understand that. I said, I understand that you have the ability to change your direction if there is a better way. I understand that in your principles and your policies. So why aren't you doing it? So I haven't got an answer back from him, but I'm hopeful that he will take our work very seriously and using that waste stream, which is out of control, actually. Coal ash is out of control, in your northern states, Illinois, Iowa, Ohio, they've got a big problem with coal ash. So why aren't we using this to make artificial fertilizers for these farmers, which will mitigate the hypoxic zones in the Gulf of Mexico, the hypoxic zones in the Aral Sea, which is gone now in Russia, the hypoxic zones in Arabia, the Arabian Sea, even India in China. All these areas have coastal hypoxic zones. There's 466 of them now. Well, we have 2,750 billionaires, which we have to keep that industry of billionaires going? How are we going to do that? How can we supply that billionaire 1 billion worth of product and resource when it's killing everything that resource is consuming?
Right.
See, this is our dilemma. This is our, and now what they call climate change isn't climate change. Of course, we have climate change. It's over thousands of years you have climate change. But it's accelerating. What's accelerating it? Tectonic plate activity, earthquake, volcanoes. Now we're running into the sunspot. Okay, it's a higher activity sunspot. It's going to put more delirious pressure on our magnetic field. So this is all building against us as a species. And there's going to be a culmination point. 2026, what I say, is going to be the day of reckoning. And what is that day? That day is the point of no return. Okay? We're either going to destroy ourselves or we're going to be able to get out of it using symbiotic relationship thinking. And I invented that 8 years ago. Have we got anything any further? Even telling them right in front of their faces, the academics, I'm sorry, some of them are good, but then you've got some that are cosmetic. They look good on the outside, and the inside, they're greedy. They're keeping, things going casual. That can't happen anymore. We cannot be casual. We must be extremely vigilant in how we present the future in our heart. Because if we don't, we're going to lose it. And we're very close to that. Okay. I'm telling you, this year is going to be, I say the red heifer,
Okay.
The spiritual aspect of our journey is just as important as the intelligent part of our journey. So you can have all the intelligence of the world. You don't know how to use it, you're in trouble. And right now, today, we're these lies that are being thrown at us through media is a serious threat to how we're going to proceed in the future. Are we going to end up with 500 million people that are going to control and be the last living survivors of a planet that had 8 to 9 billion people, which could comfortably, by the way, be taken care of food-wise, comfortably. We have the ability to do that, but we have to do it in a configuration that makes it all on one page. We're all together on that page. I don't see that happening in the next 3 years. Now, I don't want to be that kind of guy that says, "Oh, your optimism's gone." Oh, I have optimism, and I'm going to show, the water power how it's going to work. I'm going to show the DTM1 how it's going to work, for individual houses, and I'm going to show the frequency of what we're doing to our planet, in terms of doing good for our planet, in terms of doing like the Green Sahara project. I said, like Facebook, I have Green Sahara project doing better. See, Green Sahara project could put us into a breadbasket the size of 3.5 million square miles. You know what I'm saying? We could grow, huge volumes of food through that method. But they don't want to spend the 25 to 30 billion to create a pipeline. What is that? Who's in control? This guy called the Dragon, this guy called the Antichrist, this guy called Satan, I guess some would call him. So that's the guy I see that's in control. We need to break something that governments just don't have an idea. I wrote to Biden administration, and John Rosebush wrote to Biden We never got an answer. We never got an answer from Gutierrez after his first, oh, yes, we're going to get letters to these member nations and let them know that this is available, in a water power. And shortly after, John lost his mind.
Yeah.
So is this coincidence? We get back to that circle. All right.
Right.
Now, I have one thing that's on my side. I have those that do good, and you guys do good, and I believe in you. And also, this could happen very quickly, how we want to go forward. We can converse on a daily basis or a weekly basis. I can show you everything I've done, and put it into your young hands and tell you, look, this is how it works. Okay. And if you're ready for it, let's build it. See, July was John's time frame. I'm looking more like September, the time frame, because I'm, hogwashed here. I'm working on one leg. Not my age. I'm in good health, but money-wise, in the production aspect of the model, we put this model together. We are all on the same page, just like Richard Konecki, right? He's on the same page with me, and he wants traction for his no money system. I think his ideas are brilliant because no one in their right mind has that capacity to think in those terms because they're not in their right minds. They've been taught the old system. The old system must fall. The new system must begin. And I'm part of that new system. Though I'm aging, I'm 65. I'm aging, but I got good 20 years left in me, and my mind is very good. I mean, I took an IQ test just the other day. I got a 135, okay, on a Similac IQ test, like symbols and all those things. So my IQ is still good. I want to be able to transfer that to you guys, okay?
Excellent.
I'm telling you, it's reality stuff. It's not something of fiction. I'm not the Tesla of this day. I'm the copycat of Tesla. And everything that I learned from Tesla is absolutely, I learned it in a separate sense. It was kind of like when he lit those bulbs in Chicago, in the Chicago Fair, okay? That bright light, that's still in me that wants you guys to see that. And I want everybody to see that. And it's not me doing it alone. No, I haven't gone alone. But I've developed what I know alone. See? And then when I give it to you, you'll be like, dang, that's just too simple. That it's just too simple to be like, how can that be that simple? See? And then you'll be like, okay, now I understand.
Absolutely.
See?
So
I want to get you guys.
So James, I'm gonna kind of need to think about this. I'm gonna need to go through the documents, obviously, that you're gonna send me. I'm also gonna challenge all of our viewers, anyone watching this. So it'll be published probably a week or two from now. It's not live, obviously, but anyone who's watching this, please reach out to me or James. I don't know, James, if you want us to put your email there or put your website there, or if you want them to go through us. But I'd really love to connect anybody who's engineeringly inclined to kind of try to implement some of these things or learn some of it with you as well. And I'll try to connect you with as many people as I can to try to verify some of these ideas and prove whatever we need to prove to get the powers that be to pay more attention to some of these solutions.
And also open sourcing the technology is the best thing you could do to protect yourself, according to basically everyone in this sort of space that I've listened talking about.
Right. The IP obviously, came from me and John Rosebush, and we've got that documented. See, we have all of that documented in his YouTube, and my documentation in paperwork. I did it paper-wise. Yeah. And by the way, I'm also documented all of the data, for the wet system. Not that we'll use that cell system, because I would really prefer the lithium ion deeper cell system, being able to desulfate, or how it'd be deionizing it. I don't know. Lithium ion works a little differently.
Yeah.
So getting that frequency correct, and it's been a year and a half that I've been able to devote some time to that. And I'm close. I'm close.
Okay.
Take lithium ion battery, by the way, and I've got it revived. Something that's totally spent, reviving it through a frequency. How?
Yeah.
So
it's something that's really easy to prove once you got it working. You just need independent parties to come in and kind of verify that the power is generating, and I'd be very happy to be that independent third party for sure, as far as getting this out there. So thank you so much, James, for being with us today. I know our viewers have a ton to kind of think through. We've definitely covered a lot today. With the Green Sahara, the DTM1 project for the electrical generation, and then the water project for the water vortex, or what's it called again? Do you have a name for the water machine?
Kinetic force technology.
Kinetic force technology. Okay, catchy. So the kinetic force technology energy producer, and then coal ash detoxification. So 4 major projects you're kind of working on that I definitely would encourage anyone out there watching this to learn more about those things, and to contact James directly and see what we can do to get this information out into the world as much as we can before it gets squashed or before it's too late. 2026. And I definitely believe there's definitely cutoff points. We're hitting trigger points. We're hitting tipping points.
I'm not saying that's the end. 2026.
No, it's a tipping point.
By no means.
A turning point.
It is a tipping point.
Yeah. So we need to
not because of CO2 and all of that. It's because of the sunspot activity is going to increase, and it's steadily increasing. So the chances are for a sunspot or a coronal mass ejection to, phases. We went through one already, and it's not even the peak, not even close to the peak of the sun. Right. We've had one that disrupted quite a bit, just a couple weeks ago or about a month ago, So,
okay. So lots to think about, lots to ponder. We'd love to kind of have you again someday, James. Obviously, we can continue this discussion once everyone's had a chance to look at it. Martin, do you have any other final questions or things you'd like to talk about today before we let James go for now?
I don't think I have any final question. I just also have a lot to think about at this point.
You've hit us with a whole bunch of water hose, fire hose stuff here that we've got to kind of try to drink down a little.
Actually, you've definitely surpassed my expectations for what I think this interview is going to be about on many levels.
Yeah. Look, do you have any final words for today, James? You shared so much with us. We definitely have to let it settle and figure it out and figure what we can do to help you. Do you have any other final messages for our viewers today that you can leave us with?
Be optimistic. Know that we do have technology today that transcends anything possible that you'd ever imagine that can help us. It's there to help us. And I believe God gave that to me, and I'm going to give it to everybody that needs to have it. Is there a God? Yeah, there is. I've read the Bible several times. I come with the same conclusion every time. We're either massively in a 3D simulation of some sort, and everything's programmed, and we just need to know and be given the keys which unlock a lot of our future for the better. For the better. We want to keep and be very careful who we give the information to, keeping it in our hands as legally keeping it in our hands is a protection point. But we also know that copyright and IP, it's all preliminary stuff to protecting our work. And all those that are sincere, to know a better future, you stay with these guys and they're going to steer that good future. I have a good vibe about you guys.
Thanks so much, James.
That you're really sincere and you care about, what's going to transpire tomorrow for the better. And what's held me back mostly is not so much money, things like that. It's the characters that I need to be filled in my life. I've lost some, and I need to put some back in that are capable, not only intellectually, but with their hearts also. So, my great uncle always had his hand open like this, with his fist like this, which one? And it didn't ever matter which one, I'd pick the left or the right. He had the same in both hands. He says that's what life can be. And, I always remember him for that. I was maybe 7 years old at the time when I met him. But, life has a way of giving us something that we need to step forward and put it into action. And that's what I'm doing today.
Thank you so much, James. We're looking forward to seeing how things evolve, and hopefully in some small way we can help with this journey of getting this great technology out into the world where it can do the most good for society. And thanks so much for our viewers for joining us today. We'll hope to hear more from James. We'll be in touch for sure. Reach out to us again, and thanks for joining us. Let's save the world together, everybody. Bye for now.
Luke Martin, thank you.
Thanks, James.